Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar, and once again, this is my opinion. It's kind of a very old school family meme joke that whenever children were misbehaving, whether it be at school, but usually in the house, especially in the old school family dynamic of the stay-at-home mom, that one threat that was often used was, "You wait until your father gets home." Now, when it comes to the Barone family, obviously that was a valid threat for Frank as the patriarch. But when it comes to the Barone family that live across the street where Ray is the patriarch, obviously that's more a type threat than a legitimate threat. Because he's not really much of a disciplinarian. And this episode deals with that. This is Everybody Loves Raymond, Season 7, Episode 15, The Disciplinarian. This is an episode written by Mike Royce, which is a name that I mention every so often because he seems to be one of those writers that started with Season 4 and has done a couple. And back in that season, he did Deborah's Workouts and Marie and Frank's New Friends. Season 5, he expanded to a couple more episodes. He's the one that did the last hit, Fix Robert, and The Author. Last season, he did Ray's Ring, Tissues, and The First Time. So, character-driven ones. And this season already, we've seen him do counseling, and then after this, he's going to do Meet the Parents, and he also does the Bachelor Party. Let's see what he does next season. Oh, he does the Contractor, the Bird. Oh, those are going to be interesting ones to talk about. And then season 9, he also wrote the finale, so yeah, he did stay on and all that. I mean, he didn't do as many episodes as some of the other writers that were with the show for a while, but hey, you can definitely tell when it's an episode he does, at least a little bit from the humor, because this definitely strikes me as the type of humor he would do with the kids. Now, you get what's going to go on right from the beginning, because Ray, Marie, Frank, Robert, they're all chilling down in the living room watching TV. They do bring up the ongoing storyline where they mention, like, we're not even telling the family we're engaged yet, so we're waiting on that. Which I believe that bit of dialogue is actually cut from the syndicated one, because I don't remember hearing that the first time I saw this episode, which, yes, this is another one of the ones that I saw in syndication, which, now some of you are probably tired of me saying that by now, but hey, it's the truth. When I can mention the truth, I gotta mention it. The twins come down, they go straight to Ray. You can tell right away something's up if you've watched the show long enough to know how the kids react, like, they want something. And they want to go outside and play. Ray says, yeah. But then Deborah comes out like, hey, have you guys cleaned your room? That room, I told you to clean it half an hour ago. And this is where you can tell what they're doing, because they look from Deborah to Ray like, you going to let her say that? Oh, they can play. And of course, Deborah ends up putting her foot down and sending it back up there. Leads to a funny little bit of dialogue. Mommy's mean. And throughout the episode, they get back and forth about the disciplinarian talk from different points of view, about different methods of disciplining the kids, and of course Frank doing the old step thing, which that was funny when they brought that up. Ray, of course, decides, you know what, I'll go up there, and I'm not some guy that, not a party clown with balloons coming out of his behind. He goes up there and talks with them, and they're just playing with the toys. They're not even cleaning the room. He tries doing that. He even tries the old Frank double step thing. But coming from Ray, there's not a lot of menace behind it, so the kids think he's just playing. So they do, and they start joking and him playing. Until Ray makes a legitimate threat and says no TV for a month. And I like how the twins are just like, what? Yep, and then Ray really goes extreme and starts taking stuff away and then tells them to go to bed right now. Which just shows really how much he's going off the deep end compared to what Deborah would normally do. Because when Deborah comes in, they go run into her. Mommy, Daddy's acting mean and crazy. And of course, when Ray goes downstairs with them, he's like, oh, frick, I messed up. Why'd you make me do this? This is why I suck being the disciplinarian. And they all get into a talk about what went on up there. And then Ray's like, yeah, maybe I should go up there and not do it. And of course, Frank intervenes. And the whole talk just goes around in circles about different ways of disciplining the kids. Maybe Ray should stay as a fun parent and Deborah just be the disciplinarian. And then, different things that happened when they were kids and all that. Like Frank mentions how he had the curfew and how, even though you would always complain about the curfew when you were a kid, it kept you out of trouble, didn't it? And then we find out that Ray would come in for the curfew, wait for Frank to go to sleep, and then sneak back out. And I love how Ray does admit to it. Dad, with how much loud you snored, I could have snuck out of there blowing a trumpet. And Frank's like, you little punk. Now, I mentioned that by this part of the show you can tell that Peter Boyle's heart attacks are playing a little bit on him. Now, to go a little bit more into that, at this part of it, you don't notice it all the time yet. It's usually for certain takes that they ended up using in certain episodes. And I think part of it might be like how early in the shoot that take was, his energy level for that part of the episode, that part of the season. Here he still has a pretty decent amount of energy. It's not going to be like later in the season and then going into the next season where you can definitely tell his energy levels have dropped. For this one, he still is there. Not as much as it was earlier in the show, but he still got some good energy levels, especially with the singers. They give him like, you little punk. And of course, we found out they also snuck alcohol out with the peppermint schnapps. Robert getting the back panel of the liquor cabinet out. I just love that Frank, out of everything, he takes more umbrage with the fact that she pops the back panel out rather than the fact that they took alcohol. And I just love how we hear what the excuse was. You told me you ate a bad candy cane. It had to be a really bad candy cane, I think, in order to make you throw up. But then they mentioned that the house smelled like mint and vomit. Now, mint and vomit both have their own distinct smells. It just makes me wonder, what distinct smell would mint and vomit have? Would it be like that undercurrent of the throw-up smell with a little bit of mint on top of it, to where it's one of those things that smells good and bad at the same time? Is it one of those things that kind of goes with Fat Bastard's description of smells like carrots and throw up? I could gaga maggot. Even Stink would say that stinks, or the whole apartment building thing, plus crap. That's what my guess is with it. They keep talking about it. We find out that even though Deborah said that her parents explained the reason they had the rules, which, just to go with, there is a little bit you could take from that, explaining why that we have certain rules for kids is good, instead of just the whole because I say so. Because just going off of because I say so might get them to start undermining your authority, as we see Ray and Robert did with their dad. But the whole thing, even then, there's not going to be 100% fail-safe, as we find out, because when Deborah went to Mardi Gras in college, I just love how Ray just beats that over the head like that horse. It ended up in the paper. He gets a holy crap from Frank. And they're all talking about it like, oh, the kids would never do that. And then Deborah was like, oh, Allie just asked if she could wear a miniskirt. And Ray's overreaction to that. Pants, no pants! I can imagine Allie at this point in the show asking if she can wear that, especially since that seemed to be kind of a fad thing for certain teens and preteens in the early 2000s into the mid-2000s. So I could see Allie asking for that. And of course, them saying no, definitely something the Barones would do, even with Deborah's a little bit more liberal-minded leanings. I say that she probably wouldn't let Allie wear one until later in her teens, like she's closer to adulthood. Because at that point, Ray doesn't really have a lot he could say other than, where do you think you're going, young lady? And of course, at that moment, Ray becomes his father. That just makes me wonder how Frank would have been as a parent if they had a daughter instead of just two sons. He probably would have been an overprotective dad. Probably one of those ones that like, oh, you must be Jeremy. I know I'm getting off on a little side tangent, but it's one of those things you can't help but think about. Well, they do come to a consensus with it, though. It's like, yeah, we know that you're getting older. You're going to start changing a little bit, and you're going to do stuff. But if you do, just make sure we never find out about it. And from how we see their conversation in this episode, sometimes it's best that certain things that you do, the parents don't find out about. And this is not the first time we found that out. Season 1, remember the whole fake ID thing. But on weekends, I was 42-year-old Ahmed Abdullah Khan. I was a holy man. Gotta love that. I'm going down to see. Okay, that should have been in goofs rather than trivia, but oh well. Now Ray does undo his punishment, as you can kind of guess, but ends on a very hilarious note with it, like, oh no, they're not going to do that. And then the epilogue is definitely the one this episode deserved, where Ray and Deborah are in bed, they're talking. Like, oh, what are we going to do? We need a vacation. And Ray goes there like, yeah, I was thinking we go to Mardi Gras. Which that alone would have been a good ending joke, but he just keeps pushing that dead horse. When the Saints go marching in, when the Saints go marching in. And I don't know if this last part was scripted or if it's something they talked about and be like, how about when you do that, I do this. Or he keeps teasing it with it up, and then Deborah reaches over, grabs his nipple, and twists it a little bit. Which, you technically say, yeah, that's a little bit of domestic violence, but you can't say Ray didn't deserve that with how much he was beating that dead horse over the head. So he got a little bit of a comeuppance there. And that's really all there is to talk about with the Disciplinarian without going over every line note for note, but showing that even with how good of parents Frank and Marie think they were, which we all know that's through rose-tinted goggles, there was still enough for the kids to rebel against. And even with how good parents they are by comparison, we know the twins and then Allie are going to probably do stuff, but whether the parents find out about it or not, we don't know. Although, just to be honest, if they ever did do like a reunion episode of this show showing, the family 2 decades later, obviously Frank and Marie gone because Peter and Doris are no longer with us, and Deborah and Ray now filling that vacuum. Maybe have Ray be a little bald just as the joke. That their reactions to finding out stuff that Allie and the twins did, or surviving twin, I should say. That would make some good joke fodder. Oh no, this is another fun episode. Like I said, on the whole, it is kind of filler. Even though it's a concept that could have worked any season, definitely works better later on when twins and Allie are a bit older. More so the twins instead of the focus here on screen. And it's a nice little breather between when we meet Hake and Pat and when we go to the next parts. The next episode coming up is also a little bit of a breather, but to say it's one of the few in this season I usually would skip over. And since I've watched it before I'm recording this, I could say it's definitely one my mind has changed on a little bit, but instead of going from skip all the time, it's skip depending on my mood. But it is still a fun little one. Of course, it's going to be the one called Sweet Charity. Well, so that should be a fun little talk about. Just another reminder, though, if you want to support the channel, the Patreon and PayPal links are down below. If you want to support the channel continuously, go to Patreon route. You gain access to videos like this early, and you'll be able to suggest topics for future videos. Like, let's say you want me to review a random episode of a show I have not talked about on here. I can do that. If you just want to do a one-off support or a one-off request, go the PayPal route. Either way, your support is appreciated. And until next time, guys, have a fun day.